Episode 6 of WandaVision. So after we get Evan Peters as Quicksilver in the previous episode, we pretty much open with him and he stole the show. Every scene he was in, he was filling it with so much personality, and even the MCU jokes that on paper aren't even that funny, he makes them funny with his delivery and comedic timing. There is even subtlety in his comedic performance that I know was not in the script or given to him by the director. Vision gives him a fist bump to the chest and Quicksilver looks at his fist like, what just happened? That was a nice little comedic attention to detail and a very subtle bit of humor, and that's how I know that it was not written or directed by the MCU, because it was subtle. If it was the MCU, they would have drawn so much attention to it, but a little subtle bit of humor like that is enough. So Evan Peters did an amazing job in this episode, and he really did steal the show. Next up, I didn't like the kids. The two kids feel forced as all heck, and the tone of the show just feels cheaper with them. I know they're in the comics, but still, that doesn't change my outlook on them as of now. The only time I had fun watching them is when Uncle Quicksilver was with them. His mischievous interactions with them was great, and again, incredibly well acted. Although they unfortunately give him the Age of Ultron Quicksilver effect when he runs, and it's just some cheap blue lines. Not the much better running effect that he had in Days of Future Past. He's not even as fast as he was in Days of Future Past, and that's because this is not Fox's Quicksilver. And although Evan Peters as Quicksilver is the best part in this episode, he is completely pointless. Because this Quicksilver is literally the Quicksilver from Age of Ultron. It's not the multiverse starting to take effect like most of us thought, and that's why Evan Peters being in this show is completely pointless. Much like a lot of other elements in this show, he is 100% fan service, and if anything, it would make more sense emotionally as well as with the MCU's continuity if they just got their Quicksilver actor back, as opposed to going over to Fox's side. And I did find this reference to Kick-Ass super forced and out of nowhere.
Kick-Ass.
Both Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson were in the movie Kick-Ass, and it feels like they said it just to say it. And I like the upfront conversation between Quicksilver and Wanda, where he essentially says to her, "You know that I am your brother, you can talk to me." And he asks her questions about this world, and she opens up a little. And although we see that she clearly has a lot of control over this world, she doesn't know how it started in the first place. So I liked this scene between the two, although I did find it very harsh when she threw him across the room. I mean, I know he said something that was kind of mean, but this as a response was uncalled for. Just rewind back time if you don't want your kids to hear that, like you always have. Don't pull an Arya Stark and start forgetting that you've had this ability. And something I have not been talking about in this show is the commercials, and some of you guys have been asking me what I think of the commercials in this show, and honestly, I'm just not interested enough to dissect them. I'm sure they have hidden meanings to them, but I just don't feel fascinated or motivated enough to figure out what they're hinting at. I would rather wait for the future episodes to tell me. That is, until I saw the commercial in this episode, and it was awesome. The commercial made me laugh, and the production felt like a commercial that I would see in between shows on Cartoon Network when I was a kid in the early to mid 2000s. Only this one had a very dark ending, and my interpretation of this commercial is that Wanda is the shark, and this kid represents the people that she has trapped with her powers, like this lady who is in a constant loop. And likewise, this kid is constantly in this loop trying to open this lid, but he can't, yet he keeps trying again and again and repeating his cycle of movement until he eventually dies. And I'm guessing that the same thing is happening to the people that are in this world. So that was a lot more fun to dissect, and I had fun with that one. And I was on the edge of my seat when Vision was trying to escape the world that Wanda had created and see what was on the other side. I didn't know what was going to happen. Was he going to revert back to the state when Thanos killed him or something? Is he only alive because he's in Wanda's world? I don't know, but it clearly appears that he cannot escape the world as it keeps pulling him back. And when Wanda finds out about this through one of her kids, she crazily expands this world that she has created, and the entire crew of S.W.O.R.D. outside get pulled into this world, with only Director Douchebag here and one or two others being the only survivors. And also, Darcy is handcuffed to a car by S.W.O.R.D., and instead of saying, "Are you serious right now?" she should be screaming for her life and begging for help, because she should be terrified of being one of Wanda's prisoners in her world. But instead, she completely underplays it and says, "Are you serious right now?" Also, are you kidding me right now? Is this a CGI tear? Because tears don't look that big and fake. Also, I like the idea of seeing stuff like this, it makes for some creepy imagery, but the music is not the slightest bit creepy. If it was, then this could be more freaky and unnerving, but instead, it feels like this scene is unfinished and the composer forgot to compose music for it. I would even say the same goes for the music when Vision talks to Agnes in her car and she asks him if he's an Avenger, and he says, "What's an Avenger?" The music is not reacting to what's going on, and these are meant to be creepy scenes, as well as big moments for Vision to get motivated to confront Wanda and help these people, but they lack impact. Not because of the actors or the directing, but because of the music. The music that's playing here is the same goofy music that's playing during the Halloween party, and when it cuts to these scenes, it should be more serious and intense, as these are the show's more serious moments, and the music should reflect that, but it doesn't. Also, as expected, the scene where Agnes laughs was nowhere near as creepy as the trailer made it out to be. But again, I really like seeing the sympathetic side to Vision, such as when he promises Agnes that he will stop Wanda. It really makes me root for him, and I am 100% on his side here. So the previous episode 5 was a build-up episode, and I thought this episode would have more of a payoff to it, but it's ultimately another build-up episode. And because of that, my score for this episode is also a 7 out of 10. It's fun, but it's lacking atmosphere and substance, and although I had fun with this episode, it didn't do much plot-wise to earn a higher rating. Next up is episode 7, and I gotta say, I am freaking done with these sitcom openings. The episodes always feel like they're at a complete standstill just so they can use this comedy sitcom gimmick, and I'm just waiting for them to be over so we can get to the actual substance and story of the episode. It's obvious that they're trying to make this look like a reality TV or mockumentary, and I don't care. The whole sitcom thing is just completely lost on me now, and it's really overstayed its welcome. Now on the plus side, we cut back to Vision, and again, I really love the way the aspect ratio changes. Again, I'm watching this on my projector, and it's a lot of fun to see the screen just grow right in front of you. And I like how he's lying on the ground on top of green grass, the same way he was when he died in Infinity War. Vision follows a deluded Darcy around who doesn't know who he is, but I like that Vision snaps her out of her trance very quickly. I completely forgot that he could do that, and he did it very quickly without the episode padding itself out. In this scene at least. And throughout the episode, Wanda is seeing her world completely glitch out. This is the kind of thing I would have loved, but the episode completely ruins it, because it's not horrifying. Wanda is clearly concerned and worried about all of this, but again, the music does not match her concern. It's just playing more goofy music, and that's not making the scene unnerving and creepy, it's just making it feel silly and goofy. And what's annoying is that the jig should be up at this point. We should start to see the dismantling of the sitcom world as we near the last 2 episodes, but they still keep dragging the sitcom thing on. This just proves my point that when Marvel are doing something that is suspenseful or serious, they get nervous and think, let's pull back into our safe space, comedy. No, this is too serious and scary for you. Don't worry, here are some jokes instead. If they made the music creepy and showed that even Wanda is starting to lose her cool and start freaking out, and then she talks in an interview about her life and how scary things have gotten, then that would be a great and really effective way of incorporating the sitcom element into the actual story, but they're just doing what I always feared they would do. The trailer was making it look creepy, but in typical MCU fashion, they were false advertising. The tone of this show is constantly being pulled back into comedy, even though it should be creepy. It's like this show commits to the comedy, but it does not commit to any of the horror elements that it was teasing in the trailer. The scariest thing in this whole entire show is in the black and white episode where the boss and his wife were glitching, and even that was watered down with its creep factor when compared to how it was beautifully advertised in the trailer.
Watch out!
What does he mean, watch out? It was nowhere near them.
No. I can get through.
I would have at least kept my helmet on before going in, and I found it odd how Monica Rambeau uses some newfound powers due to her DNA changing after she entered Wanda's world again, and she doesn't even acknowledge them. I mean, just a little look of surprise on her face is all it would have took, but she just ignores it and acts like it's nothing. And when Kat Denning says to Vision, I've been watching WandaVision and your connection is beautiful and all that, I couldn't help but think, is this the character development, or is this the showrunner stroking his ego thinking that he's actually developed them beautifully? Because it's just a manipulative relationship from Wanda's side, and she's engaging in a relationship with someone who essentially has complete amnesia and has trapped him in a world where everyone is enslaved to live fake lives against their will, and she finds their relationship romantic. And again, how does she know exactly what happened to Vision in Infinity War, as Wanda wouldn't have told them about it, and all of the other Avengers were knocked out by Thanos? Yet she tells Vision his whole backstory. And I gotta say, the whole road trip that Vision and Darcy had was just terrible and corny. And the joke about Vision having the out of nowhere interviews, they should have no effect on him because he is actively going against the rules of the sitcom world and is thinking for himself now. So this just feels like more forced comedy. And by the way, I couldn't help but think throughout this whole road trip, Vision can fly. What are they wasting time waiting in traffic for? You guessed it, so Vision and Kat Dennings can have a road trip comedy, and it's not even that funny, and it just pads the whole episode out. Should we really be doing this when we have 2 episodes left to go until this show is over? And when Wanda gets inside Agnes's house, that's where the episode actually started to have that creepy tone that I wanted it to have, that the trailers had advertised, and the aspect ratio changed, the music was creepily atmospheric, and when this happened, I wanted to get up and cheer. This is what I wanted to get earlier and what the advertising had shown us. But in the actual episodes, they kept playing goofy music with the other scary scenes, but this actually became creepy, and I loved every second of it. And then we get the reveal. The comedic reveal. And do you remember what I said about Marvel a couple minutes ago? This just proves my point that when Marvel are doing something that is suspenseful or serious, they get nervous and think, let's pull back into our safe space, comedy. No, this is too serious and scary for you. Don't worry, here are some jokes instead. Yep, that's exactly what they did with this ending. It was beautifully set up with this creepy atmosphere, and rather than commit to it, they just keep going back to their safe space, comedy. Also, what did Agatha even do all along? Because aside from showing us a couple of mischievous pranks and brainwashing a guy that Wanda had already brainwashed, all of this is still Wanda, and she is the one that is responsible for controlling all of these people. And aside from killing a puppy, Agatha hasn't done anything that I would consider evil or worse than what Wanda has done. So what exactly is being revealed here? And this really makes her reveal lack a serious weight. And to go from the wonderfully creepy tone to the corny flashbacks and song of Agatha all along, that was bloody embarrassing, and I was shocked when I saw them do this. And the show seems to think that this is a big reveal that it was Agatha all along, but really it wasn't. Because everyone's first guess as to who the villain was in this show was Agnes, so everyone knew that it was Agatha all along. The whole thing felt like an exaggerated reveal because we all saw it coming, and she hasn't done anything aside from a couple of pranks. So this reveal falls flat on its face, and it's one of the worst twist/reveals I have ever seen. Seriously, that ending, I actually thought to myself that I would be embarrassed to be watching this in front of my parents. They've watched all of the MCU stuff and they've stuck with it, but this, they would get the old sitcom references, but they'd still be thinking, what the hell did I just watch? And again, this episode felt like it was just more build-up, and that makes 3 episodes of build-up, and I bloody well hope that next week's episode gives us more stuff rather than just more build-up. Actually, that's wrong, I take that back. We are starting to get payoff in this episode, but it was only done at the last minute and was so poorly delivered and built up that it doesn't even feel like payoff. And aside from the scene where Vision snaps Darcy out of her trance and the creepy scene where Wanda searches through Agatha's house, I didn't like anything else about this episode, and the reality TV presentation that they gave this episode was truly awful. And then they abandoned everything with the tone they set up to do this cheesy, out-of-nowhere thing. So this episode gets a 5 out of 10. I am very disappointed. This is like the first actual legitimately bad episode of the show, and you would expect better at this point, especially when this is supposed to be the big reveal that the plot has been leading to, and we are nearing our final 2 episodes. I would actually say that this is the worst episode of the entire season. 2 minutes of plot and 24 minutes of filler, and this late into the show. I expected better, and that's why it's the worst. This episode really had a huge negative impact on me, and it had a bigger negative impact on my brothers. They actually hated it more than I did. I hope the next episode is better, but I don't know. I did hear that the last 2 episodes of the show will not have any more comedy sitcom gimmicks, and I bloody well hope so. Because when the show isn't being a silly sitcom, I think it's at its best. When it is a silly sitcom, it just screws up the tone when things actually start to happen in Wanda's world, and as a direct result, my immersion into the story is broken, and when the next episode releases, I just don't feel like watching the episode right away because I know that I have to keep sitting through more of the comedy sitcom gimmick. So yeah, here's hoping the next episode will be better, but I was really unimpressed with this episode, and it has actually made me lose interest in the rest of the show. And for those of you that have been recommending it to me since I've been talking about the inconsistent tone of WandaVision, yes, I am finally watching Doom Patrol as a lot of you have requested, and the show is shockingly similar to WandaVision with some of its themes, so I know why you were recommending it, particularly when the main villain breaks the 4th wall and narrates over the heroes. And yeah, you guys were right, the tone in Doom Patrol is handled so much better. The humor is there, but when things get creepy, the music changes, and the more intense scenes are not interrupted with goofy humor. Now the show itself is good so far, but not great, but it's the tone that I am really talking about here, and it is leaps and bounds better and more competently handled than the overly goofy tone in WandaVision. So that's it for this video. I know I had a lot more negative stuff to say about it, but as always, if you enjoyed it, that is perfectly fine. I am very happy that you enjoyed it. But this is my review, and this is what I took out of the episode. I really was not very impressed with it. Stay tuned for my review of the final 2 episodes of WandaVision, as well as my concluding thoughts on this show as a whole. Can the final 2 episodes save the show for me, or will it just maintain the same level of quality? We will have to wait and find out. Please give this video a thumbs up and feel free to donate to me on Patreon, as it will continue to help me do this full time. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see all of you next time. Take care.